Fix. I've been a VCBA since 2021, and I received my certified behavioral sexologist certification in 2025. And I started supervision to become a ASECT certified sexuality counselor earlier this year as well. Uh, so yes, I have some history working with individuals in this field. So who is this presentation for? Uh, well, this can be for students who plan to work with the LGBTQ plus population, individuals with and without disabilities. We're kind of focusing in on individuals with disabilities and individuals with autism and various diagnoses today. People in psychology and psychology adjacent fields, any professional or paraprofessional staff that wish to perform their duties ethically and respectfully toward those in their care and the state and other stakeholders involved. And I think can also be helpful for individuals who may currently have a negative view of the term affirming practices because it's been used a bit as a buzzword that's been used in a bit of a negative fashion, but I'll be using it in the clinical sense. So that will hopefully clear up some of the misconceptions. And I think that can also be helpful because we behavior analysts enjoy our clarification of terms and clear definitions. So I want to make sure that we have our definitions correct up front. So I will hop into some terms real quick. LGBTQ plus stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. The plus shows it is not exclusive. It is an inclusive umbrella term for anyone that falls out of what falls under the category of heteronormativity. So essentially this notion that there is one good or right way to be, which in general within American or generally Western society is that there is male or female, in general being straight, in general no sex before marriage, making sure that sex is only for procreation and having kids is the goal of a relationship. There's that cultural pressure for that to be the goal of relationships. The notion of gender, gender for the purposes of this is how someone perceives and presents themselves privately and or publicly. Sexuality is who someone is or is not attracted to. And affirming practices is the ways that someone can recognize, validate, and support the identity stated or expressed by the individuals served. So the notion behind that is that there are many different ways of doing this. It isn't all about these complex methods that feel out of reach for everyone. These are all clinically supported and validated forms of supporting an individual's expression and supporting their clinical outcomes. Now, everyday affirming practices that should always be okay can include um, if someone tells you their names and pronouns, uh, when they're there, use them. Um, Correcting others about their name and pronouns when they're not around, with their permission, of course. Sometimes individuals do not wish to have that information spread around. Sometimes it's context dependent, um, because sometimes they don't feel safe in other environments. That's a thing that will be addressed during my case review later on. And it's something that unfortunately is something I run into a lot for individuals that are impacted at various levels by disability and by individuals without disabilities as well on the LGBTQ uh, spectrum as well. Um, but make sure that you have their permission to identify them in whatever way you're going to identify them. Consent counts. Uh, Affirming what their activity choices are, clothing, haircuts, the use of makeup. There are simple things that you can do that essentially not stigmatizing choices that someone makes. So, not going against a choice that does not cause harm or distress can generate a reinforcing environment for the person. So, um, in ABA, we love the idea of making sure that people have greater access to reinforcement, because greater access to reinforcement leads to greater access to or greater engagement in the environment. So if somebody says, "Hey, I want to uh, paint my nails," and they uh, present as male, but let's say there's a less than affirming uh, background involved in this. Something that you as a professional can discuss the notion of the influence of affirming practices that we can bring in later on. So the influence of engaging in affirming practices and some of the negative aspects of not engaging in affirming practices. Um, but like, let's say nail polish is my go-to because it's a wonderful example of something that can actually be really helpful in something that are let's say tactile defensive or sensory averse clients tend to struggle with. So like for nail care, if they do not want people touching their nails, they don't want people touching their hands. Um, Nail polish is delightful. It is very colorful. If they see their RBT or their BCBA, their therapist, whoever they're interacting with on a daily basis is wearing this and they're like, oh, and they're showing a lot of interest in this, get the parents' consent for it. And if they're okay with it, be like, hey, do you want this? Sure, like let's do this. And they're becoming um, desensitized to the notion that interacting with their nails is an issue. It's not an inherently gendered thing to paint nails. It doesn't have to be colored either. Just putting a clear coat on can make it shiny because everybody loves shiny things, right? That can be really helpful. Um, if the parent's not into it, that's something you still have to respect that. The parents have default over what happens if they have guardianship, but we should advocate for the client because that is our job. Now, something we should always do is evaluate for personal biases, to act on our values and to advocate for the values of the client. So this is something we'll get into a little bit later on in a little bit more detail. Being there as a sounding board can be incredibly important as well. So listening is just as important as speaking. Often it's more important, honestly. And always remember, kindness is free, legal, and always ethically appropriate. So you might be saying, that's all well and good, but where's the data? Well, here's the data. Here are some lovely numbers taken from the Trevor Project. This was a survey conducted of in 2024 of individuals of LGBTQ youth, and it essentially covers many of the same things we just discussed. So 88% mentioned trusting that I know who I am. So essentially, don't argue with an individual when they say, I want to be called, uh, you know, I want to be called Andy. Andrew is on my birth certificate. Okay, we'll call you Andy. Someone wants to be called another name. Okay, there's not a lot of harm in another name. Names and pronouns, validating them when they're not around, 81%. That is a huge percentage, very socially valid. Activities choices, clothes, haircuts, just these these things that feel small can be significant for people. Now, things like accepting their partners. This is something you might not run into as much in individuals that are in supported settings. But everyone has a certain level of ability to seek out a fulfilling relationship, and making sure that they're safe, providing them with education that is prerequisite to ensuring their safe ability to assent to these relationships is very important. So ensuring that we're getting everyone that education. So a comprehensive education in how to keep themselves safe can be incredibly helpful. And then just generally showing support for people, showing support for them on social media, displaying identity flags or pride flags, not supporting people if there's like, hey, this person doesn't like who I am. If someone says that that can be a impactful thing for them as well, or this has been identified as such by the individuals that we are supposed to be supporting. So why should you be affirming? The letters or the numbers here all identify elements from the BACB behavior analyst ethics code. I realize everyone here is not a behavior analyst, but I just kind of pulled that in just because it's where my background comes from. And it aligns pretty conveniently with a lot of elements from the social work ethics code and the clinical psychology ethics code, because it was kind of brought together from those as well. But within behavior analysis, Reinforcement is more effective than punishment. So when you're selecting a way of uh, changing behavior or minimizing the risk of the way you're interacting with an individual, punishment is likely to result in reaction. So if you have uh, if you engage in something that's punishing, so arguing with someone over what they tell you they know about themselves can be punishing communication. And for someone where communication is a challenge for them, that's kind of the last thing we want to do, right? You don't want to really push against their ability or their efforts to communicate. Um, so we want to increase their willingness to communicate with us. So it makes it to where it's a open dialogue. Uh, let's see. Uh, let's see. So right under there, if you reject the assertion of self-knowledge, you're punishing the communication. It's also engaging in what would be described as a mentalistic assumption. That's more of a behavior analyst concern, less of a, if you're in the more broad psychology field, you're less concerned about mentalistic or like making assumptions about what people are thinking or feeling. But it's good to not make assumptions about people. If someone tells you something, it's good to trust them and accept that, hey, they're going through the effort. They are trusting that you are someone that they can go to, that they are safe with. If they're willing to tell you something, because individuals with disabilities already feel a certain level of distance from others sometimes. And this is something that's important to address and acknowledge, because you want to make sure that they feel as much a part of the community as much a part of the community as possible, as much a part of your life as possible. Affirmation, like here, leads to confidence in community, less isolation. Less isolation means less struggle, because community supports lead to community integration. Integration into the community is going to lead to better outcomes. That's something that years and years of research has shown. Core principle one is beneficence. So just being, putting the benefit of the core client, the at the center of your efforts is the main goal of this. Cultural humility is another key component here. So your values are not rules for others. So because you have a, let's see, just because you feel something does not mean other people have to feel the same way. This all comes back to flexibility and humility, recognizing that just because you have a perspective does not mean that other people will have that. Think about it this way. A lot of what teaching individuals with disabilities, like an individual with autism, for instance, there's a lot of discussion of teaching perspective taking. That's essentially what cultural humility comes down to, is it's a big perspective taking exercise. And being aware of personal biases and challenging these can result in much more compassion an increase in dignity, and a greater feeling of mutual respect within any of these relationships that you develop. And it's our responsibility to engage in best practice. And the research has shown time and time again that the way that we engage, that we have a responsibility to do what the research shows is best. And there are, let's see, last time I looked, well over 400, I think the last time I searched, uh, in the past, let me see, that was the past 4 years. That was 400 articles was the last time I searched. Uh, when I searched that in a database for LGBTQ plus affirming practices as best practice within psychology for individuals. Now, what if I'm uncomfortable? So if if a practitioner is feeling uncomfortable, it is okay to be uncomfortable, but putting the best interests of the young person first is essential. Providing effective treatment and ensuring that you are uh, competent and able to provide effective treatment that is unbiased and is supportive of the best possible outcomes for the individual is what's at the core of best practice. So, like I said before, thoughts and feelings are not rules. They exist. We are allowed to have whatever thoughts and feelings we have. And one of the best practices for accessing and processing thoughts and feelings and choosing our responses to these rather than reactions is acceptance commitment therapy or acceptance commitment training, depending which approach you take to it. And this is just meant to increase psychological flexibility. And by engaging in this form of best practice, you will increase generalization of your ability to take on different clients. So you will be able to engage with a variety of clients from different backgrounds, a variety of clients with different sensory challenges, with different diagnoses, with different experiences of the world. Because in the same ways that that their cultural experiences as LGBTQ plus individuals might be, the same way is similar to the way that someone's experience as a autistic individual might color the way that they engage with other people. So it could change the way they engage with other people in terms of being like maybe tactile defensive. So they don't want to be touched. So, handshaking is going to be off the table. So you're going to affirm that, hey, it's okay if you don't want to do this, hugging, compulsory hugging off the table. There's things like this that we would affirm for a client anyway. We would affirm other things as well. Affirming practices for other neurodiversity affirming practices. Think of the same way for LGBTQ plus identity affirming practices. It is best practice. So now, down at the bottom, what is your obligation to the young people? To do what is right right now. Our responsibility is to keep them alive and healthy, help them learn how to keep themselves alive and healthy. And this will also build that relationship, cultivate that mutual trust and respect, and will decrease the instances of the risks that I will be getting into in the slide just after this one, the one following the next one, because I want to touch on for a few minutes here. I mentioned acceptance commitment therapy, acceptance commitment training, developed by Stephen Hayes, among others. Russ Harris is involved heavily in a lot of the practices that are used. You want to engage with this in ways that are very responsive to what the individual is interested in. So this is something that I have been able to use with highly vocal clients that are adults in their that well into their adulthood, all the way down to pediatric clients that are fairly heavily impacted by their diagnoses. So these are things that it is a highly scalable treatment. This is something that you should receive training on. And it is something that is kind of wonderful because it's useful for training staff on becoming aware of their own actions, reactions, and the ways they're engaging with their clients in their environment, and the way that, and then it's useful for the direct clients in terms of helping them engage with their world in a way that is practical and direct and not mediated through a hesitance that can prevent mindful engagement in the world. So ACT just comes down to this idea that you have your values and you want to ensure that you find ways of working through what you have chosen, work toward these in ways that are effective in the moment in practical ways. For clients working on things like past, present, and future awareness. So this can be like sorting tasks, using preference assessments and kind of narrative references can be really helpful for helping clients, even more heavily impacted clients, frame their values and frame their actions in terms that they can understand and in ways that can help them recognize that just because they do something and just because they do something that they don't that doesn't agree with what people in their environment that they want to respect agree with, it's okay because they can't change what's going on inside other people. So that's the acceptance component there. And recognizing that they can't, that it's okay to accept that you live in that moment. You live in every single moment perpetually, and you can't um, get hung up on the past, which you can't access, and you can't perpetually wait for a future that is going to be better. So make the best of the world that you have today. And that's through affirming what you have. So, what do you have now that's really good? Find value in the world you have, find value in the environment you have, and flood the environment you have with value. And that's something that the uh, case study that we're going to get to at the end of this um, works through and works on. So I'll kind of go through this because we'll probably get to questions about this near the end. Um, Now, consequences of unsound practice. So, uh, not engaging in affirming practices. So, youths in the middle school, early high school years start to develop those autonomy skills and the ability to make choices on their own. That's when those start to develop. So, uh, the absence of differentially reinforced alternatives. So, put simply, um, giving them options and letting them choose between them. So, this can work in greater or lesser controlled situations, allows them the ability to make choices on their own and makes them and gives them the ability to um, uh, feel a sense of control over their world. If you make all of the choices for them or try and control everything about what they say they are or who they say they are, it can prevent that self-expression. It can prevent that expansion of autonomy and can lead to maladaptive coping strategies such as substance use and abuse. Um, as you can see, there's several studies that have shown this over time. Um, Individuals with disabilities have uh, less access to these things sometimes, but um, just as anyone in the world, um, people are resourceful and will find access to what they have access to. So whether it is substance use or abuse, or it is self-injurious behavior, um, it all maladaptive coping strategies converge at one point, and just ensuring that people have the access to affirmation decreases the likelihood of this. An increase in sexual risk-taking behaviors when they aren't in a affirming environment occurs. So examples include not getting tested or not learning. And this can occur because they're not learning about getting tested for STIs. They're not learning about sexual health topics. They're not learning about their bodies. So one that I did not include in here is, but it's in the references section, I believe, is studies that reference the higher incidences uh, of abuse that occur in individuals with disabilities and individuals who identify on the LGBTQ plus uh, uh, umbrella have a uh, have a higher likelihood of becoming victims of abuse than their straight counterparts. So this is something to keep in mind as well. And with the increase in substance use, misuse, and abuse, that because of the lowered inhibitions and lowered ability to provide informed assent, that increases um, risky behaviors as well. There are delays in abstract thinking skills. This will sound strange coming from a behavior analyst, I know, but so without behavioral models, kids lack direction on how a future is possible with them in it. The study from 2024 referenced here is just one of many out there that discuss the idea that when someone sees themselves represented in media, it gives them a vision of there is a future for me in the world. So there are plenty of images of happy heterosexual couples. There are plenty of happy cisgendered couples out there in popular media. There are not very many representations out there in readily available media of happy, long-lasting, healthy relationships for LGBTQ youth. It is increasing, and it's wonderful to see. However, there are ways of increasing this in their natural environment. The idea of gay-straight alliances in their schools can be helpful. Increasing access to social opportunities that allow them, when they do express a identification with somewhere under the LGBTQ plus umbrella, providing them the opportunity in public controlled settings, the ability to go access community. They have community supports there, so you can keep them safe. You can help them in a supported way to gain access to community. And by having that, they can see other people living their lives. They don't have that isolation. And sorry to come down the big end of it, but there is a high increase in risk of suicide among LGBTQ plus youth in non-affirming settings. The statistics range between 40 to 70%, depending where the study is taken. It just all depends on the identity and the intersections. If someone has another intersection with another minority group, this can increase the risk as well, because it's just further isolating them from peers, isolating them from their community. And individuals with disabilities, they also don't see themselves represented. They also don't see themselves with others around them to support them. Now, to ensure that we are staying on our safe, that we're staying on the right side of things, you can always look into what laws are in place, because like I said, things are shifting all the time. You want to make sure that you're staying on the right side of things. I went through and quadruple checked the way I wrote this presentation to make sure that I was phrasing things in such a way that it was not encroaching on any sort of bans or restrictions on affirming practices or anything like that, any wording of any laws there may be in Kansas that may have been passed. So you're good. But you can look at places like the ACLU site usually has great resources on how to find advocacy groups locally. You can look at, there are also sites, Dr. Gabriela Barrientos has a site for tracking restrictions that are coming into place or that potentially could come into place. So you can kind of keep track of where different uh, restrictions are there, because it's also our job as professionals to ensure that we practice within the law, because we have to ensure that our clients, whether they are LGBTQ plus or not, whether they are uh, have a disability or not, that they learn how to exist within the law. Um, Now we want to make sure that they exist healthy within the law. So making it as affirming as possible while remaining within that is important. And one of the best ways to do that is by trusting them. And by trusting them, they will trust you and it will keep them safer. They're more likely to let you learn from them, and they will show you what matters to them. Modeling safety online can be incredibly important as well. And I am down to my case studies section. So I'll go ahead and do the case study, and then we'll do questions after that. If that sounds good. Unless, do we have a large backlog of questions right now?
I don't think we have that many, so you could probably,
Okay.
we can leave those for the end if that.
Okay. I can, the case study shouldn't take a super long time, I don't think. So, um, case study. So the case review here, I created a composite client from some of the studies that exist out there, from some, Hmm, sorry. So compo composite client from some of the individuals in the studies that exist out there on affirming practices. So a 15-year-old individual that identifies as gender fluid. They were assigned male at birth. They identify as bisexual, and they were diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder when they were 14. So they were diagnosed a little bit later, but they have been receiving, wait, did I say 14? I had it written down as 4, sorry. They've been receiving ABA services for a while, so they've receiving them since they were 4, sorry. Um, so home life details. They still live with their birth parents. Both parents are still married. Uh, there is a parental history of alcohol use, but not classified as problematic by the adults in the system. There is no history of challenges with employment or housing as a result of any of this. Uh, Now, behavioral details. This individual started sneaking alcohol at home from their parents, sneaking out of the house at night to parties with older teens and young adults since they were 11. their grades have decreased over the past year. They attend class but avoid extracurricular activities approved by the family. They text with people that they met online during class on a queer youth subreddit, uh, but they keep getting written up for this during class. They haven't received official reprimands for this within school yet, but it's getting close. Um, they have some history in the past of uh, self-injury, but that had decreased dramatically leading into their teen years. But once they started identifying, they self-identified as gender fluid and talked, they brought this up to their parents when, let me see, 15, so a year before, uh, there was some evidence that they had started to uh, do some self-injury, but it was much lower magnitude than it was before. Um, Now, the parent, so there's some details that I left off this just for the sake of not having it so crowded. The parents uh, denied uh, the existence or denied the fact that the individual uh, was not straight. They kept calling them by their birth name. They were only wanting a the name change was only a slight change from their birth name as well. Um, and the changes and they were wanting to use they them pronouns rather than he him. Now both parents were refusing to do this, and with this refusal we saw this increase in these sort of maladaptive behaviors at home and at school. Now, as far as an intervention goes, they introduced um, a parent training protocol, uh, which I hate the term parent training, parent and staff guidance, which is my much preferred training or much preferred term for it taught about queer culture and terminology and on affirming practices, kind of like what we've discussed today. It covered some ACT work, but it was a little limited. There's it, a lot of the ACT stuff isn't incorporated into a lot of these studies. There needs to be more out there. But there was a self-assessment of biases uh, and a self-report by the client weekly of how they are perceiving the levels of affirmation within the home. Uh, and the parent meetings were well attended by this client. Uh, within the study, it was run with 4 different families, and this is the one that I chose to composite most of it from because it had the best follow through on the actual intervention. Um, so uh, it involved, like I said, instruction on uh, oh, uh, yeah, instruction on culture practices, but outcomes. It We saw an increase in grades after 10 weeks of intervention. The client no longer was consuming alcohol, or they no longer reported it, and the client sought out communication with their parents independently after this. Now, we have references, and there are even more that I can provide if you're asking for more.